Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mrs. Clemens' class, and we're going to talk about the Great Depression. We're going to have a series of lessons talking about what the causes were of the Great Depression, uh, ways that we dealt with it here in the United States, and how we were possibly able to get out of it, some of the good effects and some of the negatives. Today, what we're going to be talking about is our president at the time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and his response to this. So, FDR, he becomes president in a really, really tough time. 1932, as we're discussing in a previous lesson, was when we were at the height of unemployment, almost 25%. So in 1932, he gets elected, and he is our president that was there for the most amount of terms. He got elected to 4 different terms, and we're going to be talking about that as well in other lessons. He's given, I guess, props, as we could say, for his really quick reaction to the Great Depression. So he had been governor of New York prior to this, and he had tried a few things in New York and worked to try to apply those to the nation as president. One of the big things that he did was he set up a brain trust. So not only did he have his cabinet full of advisors, but he also had some other advisors that were experts in all kinds of different fields that he relied on to get information about what would be the best tactics to take to try to fix our economy. And in class, we talked about how there are other presidents that have gone beyond their cabinet to get advice from other people. The big person we talked about was Andrew Jackson, who had a kitchen cabinet who he used to get advice. One of the big things that he promised when he was running was, I'm going to do a bunch of different things in my first 100 days as president to try to turn the situation around. And so he was fairly successful. In the first 100 days, he was able to pass 15 major acts, and this became the basis for the New Deal. It also set a precedent, and you guys know how we like talking about precedents in class. It set a precedent for future presidents that they needed to sort of stack up to that in their first 100 days, they needed to show how much they could accomplish. It's fairly hard to accomplish 15 major things, but different presidents have done different things. And so his overall program is called the New Deal. And it was created, obviously, to try to alleviate those problems from the Great Depression. All right, so it's really, really important that you understand the 3 R's of the New Deal. All right, I know I tell you guys there's some things you do have to memorize and some things you don't have to memorize. This is one you have to memorize. It's big both for the New York State Regents exam and for our good friends from the College Board, the AP exam. So the first one is relief. Basically, what you need to do is help the people that are suffering, give them immediate influx of cash so that people aren't starving, so that people aren't homeless, so that people have hope. The next part is recovery. So you've sort of triaged the wounds. The next thing that you need to do is you need to get the economy so that it could grow again. And then the last part is reform to try to avoid future depressions. So obviously, at the time that I'm recording this in March of 2020, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And so definitely watch today and see what the government is doing. As of today, it is the 25th of March, and just today there was a really big economic package that was passed. There was another one that was done last week. And so, yeah, you'll notice that these are recovery packages that they're passing, and a lot of people have compared this to the New Deal. All right, so let's talk about the New Deal and some of the specific programs. So on both the Regents and the AP exam, they do want you to know about some of these specific programs. And so again, if you're someone that is memorizationally challenged, we're not going to go over every single one of the programs. There's so many, but we're going to go over the most important ones. So the first one is the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This ensures savings accounts. So when it was originally created in 1934, at the beginning of the year, it was only for $2,500, and even later that year, they raised it to $5,000. Currently, today, it's $250,000. And so I would imagine if this crisis continues, they might raise it again. The last time that they raised it was during the 2008 financial crisis. So yeah, they're trying to make sure that people feel safe putting money in their banks so that the economy will keep going. The next program is the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, and this regulates the stock market to try to prevent fraud. Because what was happening was a lot of people were saying, hey, we've got a stock and it's great, and they were sort of lying about or fibbing in some way, shape, or form about what they were producing or how much their profit was. And so this makes sure that people can invest with confidence in the stock market. It also is a reform measure, just like the FDIC, to prevent future crashes. And I should have said in the beginning, but definitely make sure as you're writing down these notes that you're taking note of which things are relief, recovery, reform. So FDIC is reform and recovery. SEC is reform and recovery. Our next one is the AAA. So that's not the AAA that we have for the automobiles today. This is the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. And the purpose of this was to reduce agricultural surplus. So the idea was that the supply was really high, so that made the price really low. And they need to raise prices because farmers, as you can see in this picture down here, they're having a really, really hard time during the Great Depression. So they literally paid farmers not to grow crops. Eventually, this ends up being found unconstitutional in a Supreme Court case called U.S. versus Butler, which we're going to talk about in another video. And this, again, set another precedent for today. Farmers are still given subsidies today, and it's because it's really tough to be a farmer. And they need help to make sure that they're able to keep growing and feeding us. Another program is the National Recovery Administration, which again, we have another NRA today, but this one is trying to help workers. And we've talked about in class that during times of war, we tend to help workers because we want to make sure that they're producing stuff, and so that our soldiers can keep fighting. Well, during the New Deal, during the Great Depression, they also wanted to protect workers because they were having a really rough time. Wages were being cut. So what this does is, or what it did, was it regulated wages, prices, working conditions, controlled prices. And so definitely there was a lot of criticism of this. You could see the government create a lot of sort of propaganda to kind of go along with this. And you could see here people are posting it up on their places of work. There's definitely criticism of it, and saying that the government was getting way too involved in the economy. We like this idea of capitalism and laissez-faire. It ends up being found unconstitutional. Again, we're going to talk about this in another video, but in Schechter Poultry versus the United States, it was seen as the government abusing its power. All right, another really cool program that's actually still around today is the Tennessee Valley Authority, or the TVA. What they did was they looked at some of sort of the hardest hit areas in the United States in terms of the Great Depression, and this whole area here, the Tennessee Valley. And these were people that were really, really suffering. So it provided cheap electricity by setting up all kinds of dams. They created schools, hospitals. And so this definitely helped this area to really come out of the Great Depression and sort of move into the 20th century. Again, there was definitely criticism because there were people that were living in those towns, and they were forced to move when these dams were built and then these big giant lakes. But overall, it was seen as a positive to really help people to improve their quality of life. Another program is the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA. And on this map below, you see all the different WPA projects that were done all around the country. And I'm going to put this link below in the video and on my Google Classroom for you to check out all the different projects. There's definitely a ton of them around our school. This one's actually in Beacon. The post office, the mural, well, first off, the post office itself was the WPA project. And then because they wanted to not just help people that were sort of blue collar that could build things on their own, they wanted to help writers, artists, musicians. So if you get the chance at some point to be able to go into the post office in Beacon, that whole mural in there was painted by artists so that they could have jobs too, because obviously everyone needed to work. Social Security, this is the whole package, man. It is relief, recovery, and reform. So Social Security is still around today. That's why when you're born, you get a Social Security number. When you become a citizen, you get a Social Security number. And so the idea of it is that when you are old and retired, that you will get a pension. Because prior to this, you didn't have anything to fall back on. If you didn't have money, then you wouldn't be able to find a place to live. You wouldn't be able to eat. You'd have to move in with your children or grandchildren. So this is not only for elderly, but unemployed, handicapped. And so, yeah, this starts what we call a safety net, a social safety net. It's also known as an entitlement program. And so we're going to talk about how this is sort of now an expectation of our government that they're going to provide those programs for us. Another thing that was created was the Civilian Conservation Corps. This provided jobs to young men to help out in parks, national parks all around the country, flood control, helped people that otherwise weren't able to get jobs, but it also helped the environment as well. The next one is FEMA, the Federal Emergency Relief Agency. And so we're seeing this again during this time that they're granting money to state and local governments. So it's not just from the national government, it's letting the states and the localities be able to decide how best to use their money. And then we also have the Public Works Administration. And again, they're using this time to not only just give people jobs, but jobs that will actually help to improve our society and our nation as a whole. So they're building ports and schools, aircraft carriers. But this is a little bit later in the New Deal. And one of the criticisms of the New Deal was that they were not employing enough African Americans. So this required that African Americans be hired as well, which overall helped to decrease unemployment. All right, really quickly at the end of this video, some Regents multiple choice questions for us to look at. So the New Deal was a major change in the United States history because what do you guys think is the right answer? We definitely don't think, we always try to cross out wrong answers. We definitely don't think that it balanced federal budget because there was a lot of debt. We definitely know that there were prior depressions. So now we're between 3 and 4. And the answer is 3. Definitely, they're more involved in our economy. And we're seeing that today. And then the Social Security Act is considered an important program because it did not bring a quick end to the Great Depression. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about how it was World War II. Did it provide jobs? No, it was direct cash handouts. So now we're down to 3 or 4, and the answer is 4. All right, folks, so I'll join you again for more lessons on the Great Depression. I hope that you're all doing well. Take care.